2020 brought with it a host of terrors that kept us tossing and turning at night. And that's not even factoring in the many horror video games that marked the year. Well, hey, it's been a walking nightmare. Despite the world being in lockdown, or maybe because it was, games developers still churned out incredible feats in the horror genre. While some are good for a quick playthrough, others hold their own and have become wildly popular on streaming outlets. If you think you're caught up on the year's best horror titles, let this list shock you. Yeah, not our best. It's been a long year, a very, very long year. But like and subscribe to ease the pain, please. 10. In Silence. Say what you will about A Quiet Place, but you have to admit a video game iteration does sound cool. Even without knowing much about the project, the notion that you can't make a sound lest you become a creature's snack is intimidating and intriguing. In Silence takes that concept and puts it into a 2 to 6 player multiplayer experience. Play as either a survivor or the hypersensitive Rake in this unique online survival horror experience. As a survivor, your goal is to escape, but every noise you make draws the attention of the horrifying Rake. Though practically blind, the Rake can follow sounds to its flesh and blood targets. Though In Silence could use a little polish, the overall experience is a delight. Gadgets and gizmos like squeaky bears and radios give the survivors an edge over the blind creatures, but the agility and relentlessness of the Rake make it a difficult foe to outrun and outwit. At 9. Labyrinthine. Some of the best horror games should be played with friends, or at the very least, with friends present. Thankfully, Labyrinthine allows you to step into a maze of overgrown trees with your closest pals as you work together to solve puzzles. Unfortunately, the living maze has other plans and will throw unimaginable terrors your way. You may try to stay together, but the maze will keep you separated with sudden vine walls, making it easier for the maze's inhabitants to make a snack of you. Johnny Honk's Fair Hedge Maze has been a staple of the region for years, but it has never been open to the public. That may be on account of all the people that have gone missing in it. Will you be the next souls to succumb to the sprawling maze? Cooperate with your friends to solve puzzles and locate essential items, and you may just make it out alive. Number 8. Observer System Redux. In a world ravaged by war and plagues, you'd think there wouldn't be much to salvage. Yet investigator Daniel Lazarski still finds himself immersed in a case following an elusive and crafty killer. Portrayed by the late Rutger Hauer, Lazarski can tap into the dreams of the dead and dying to piece together clues and evidence for his ongoing investigation. Unfortunately, some dreams are better left unseen. The more Lazarski sees, the more he sacrifices a bit of himself for the good of the corporate entity keeping him employed as an observer. Observer System Redux is a re-release of the wildly popular 2017 title. Available on the Xbox Series X, PS5 and PC, Redux features the original game, additional story content and improved visuals. 7. Dark Pictures Anthology, Little Hope. Until Dawn took the horror community by storm, providing them with a deep and engaging narrative framed by minimalist gameplay. Sure, you could complain about the QTE events, but the amount of work Supermassive Games put into designing its take on choose-your-own-adventure makes up for the lack of immersive gameplay. Dark Pictures Anthology is the product of Until Dawn's success, and Little Hope is the second of 8 planned entries. Following Man of Medan, an underwater horror adventure, Little Hope borrows elements from the Salem witch trials to tell the story of an old town and its haunting past. Like Supermassive's other horror titles, no character is safe from the horrors that await in the town of Little Hope. If you enjoyed Until Dawn and Man of Medan, then Little Hope is a must-play. 6. The Last of Us Part 2. You don't earn a nomination for Game of the Year by just being mediocre, and The Last of Us Part 2 definitely earned that recognition. However, as an outright horror game, it lacks a little. That is, unless you consider The Horrors of Mankind, because then it's easily ripe with enough content to make your skin crawl. Ellie returns to the spotlight 5 years after Naughty Dog introduced us to the cordyceps virus that plagues the world. A lot has changed, with relationships strained and revenge on the minds of characters we've never even met before. The Last of Us Part 2 is much less about the infected and more about how terrible people can be and the dangers of following a path of revenge. The infected are still there though, and thanks to improved AI and a few terrifying surprises, they're even more horrifying than before. 5. The Coma 2 Vicious Sisters. The live-action trailers for the Coma 2 Vicious Sisters give off the impression that Dev Espresso Games cooked up an incredibly cheesy horror adventure. On the contrary, Vicious Sisters is unapologetic in its desire to completely terrify the hell out of players. The Korean horror adventure is told through hand-illustrated visuals which only amplify the scares. Though it's a 2D adventure, Dev Espresso worked wonders with the visually eerie environments, which feature flailing bodies, gruesome displays, horrifying hazards, and decaying walls sure to leave you unsettled. It's very reminiscent of Clock Tower, but Vicious Sisters features so much more, from ample item management, an expansive map full of secrets and resources, and terrifying fiends looking to tear you limb from limb. Hide when the true horrors come to life, or suffer at the hands of your worst nightmares. 4. Visage. A house holds a lot of memories, births and birthdays, marriages and divorces, the best of times and the very worst. And that's the underlying theme to Visage, a survival horror game that took a bit of inspiration from the Silent Hills preview demo, PT. In Visage, you'll explore an otherwise ordinary suburban home searching for clues to its horrid past. Generations of lies, deception and death have painted the walls, leaving behind deadly spectres that aren't too pleased with your presence. The more clues you uncover, the more active the restless spirits will get. As you experience apparitions and ghostly encounters, your sanity will dip and your chances of survival will dwindle. Visage is pretty straightforward, but its use of the supernatural is entertaining and sure to keep you coming back when you're in the mood for a good scare. 3. The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. Remember when zombies were the only thing you had to worry about? Then Dawn of the Dead and The Walking Dead came along to highlight that, in an event of an apocalypse, people are pretty terrible too. Well, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners lets you decide the kind of person you'll be when the dead rise from their graves. The virtual reality experience thrusts you into the world of The Walking Dead, where supplies are dwindling and the undead are growing in numbers. Every day you're alive gets more and more difficult, and your only hope for survival is to gather whatever you can, craft a bevy of weapons, and ally yourself with as many people as possible. In The Walking Dead, you're always outnumbered and under-equipped. That the horrors are unfolding in a virtual reality environment only amplifies the tension of trying to survive. Number 2. World of Horror. Masters of Horror Junji Ito and H.P. Lovecraft would be pleased with World of Horror, a love letter to their mind-bending works. Developer Panstars created this one-bit turn-based horror game clearly with the intent of driving players mad, much like Lovecraft often did with his tales of the old gods and baying hounds. As the power of the old gods overtakes the world, it becomes infested with oddities and unusual creatures. Whether or not you survive their emergence is completely up to the choices you make and how you solve the new mysteries of the world. The game's blend of RPG, turn-based strategy and horror creates an incredible experience that, believe it or not, was drawn entirely in MS Paint. Number 1. Phasmophobia. It surprises me that it took so long for someone to conceptualize Phasmophobia. Ghost hunting has been big since well before the Sci-Fi channel rebranded to Sci-Fi. For reference, that's more than a decade ago, yet here we are in 2020 looking at the best and most fleshed out attempt at capturing the thrills of investigating a haunted location. As someone that's been in this field for a while, it's not typically exciting, so Kinetic Games ups the ante by making Phasmophobia's spectres a bit more murdery than usual. As you utilise cameras, voice recorders, spirit boxes, sage and a host of other authentic equipment to draw out and identify the spook, you're also watching for signs that it's growing agitated. Overstay your welcome and you will become part of the building's grisly history. Phasmophobia is a great multiplayer title that is as much fun to watch as it is to play. And there you have it, there is our top 10 list of the best horror games of 2020. As ever, we throw the question back to yourselves, the humble listener. Did you agree with the list? Did you disagree? Are there any games that you feel we left out that you would have put in? Please, as ever, sound off in the comments down below. But if you enjoyed the video, please do consider giving it a like, subscribing to the channel by hitting that little old red button down there and slapping that notification bell so you don't miss any more of our upcoming videos for this lovely channel on YouTube. And please do also consider checking out all the other social medias and the CultVultures website, all available on the screen right now. We hope to see you in the next video, but until then, cuckoo.